Okay, hi guys. This is the Game Camp Day 1 and 2 video to go over the things that we did on the first 2 days of Omar Vision's Game Camp this summer. So this is what we have at the end of the first week. Everybody should have something like this, where they have a little scene that they made and they put some objects in it. And just today, we just added a player, this guy, and the player is something that we could control. So by the end of this first day, we had a game like this that we could move around one of the objects and just go around like this. It, you know, we make games, it's a slow process. It takes step-by-step instruction. Okay, so how did we do all this stuff? That's the things I'm going to go over in this video. So in case you don't remember, you could look at this video and then remember. All right, so first things first, let me close this Unity and start a new one. And it's asking if I want to save what I have here. And of course I do. I want to save it. I don't want to lose it. So I'll say save. And then it closes. And then my Visual Studio, I'm going to close that too. And it wants to save. There. So now I'm going to open up a new Unity game. So I start off here with the Unity Hub icon. All right. And I'm going to double click on that. And then you have a little whirly glass because it's going to take a moment to open. And these are all the games that I made in the past. So here's what we just saw day 1. But I'm going to make a new project, a new game project. So I'll press new. And let's give it a name. This is day 1, day 1 and 2. That's going to be the name of this project. And it's going to be a 3D game. All right. And on my computer, it's going to go into the C Omar Unity location. But mainly, this is what I want you to do. Make sure what the name is, and make sure it's a 3D project, and then press Create. And when you press Create, then you're going to see this little Unity splash screen, and you see these little things as Unity is getting ready to open up. Okay? Finally, when Unity opens up on your computers, this is what it's going to look like. All right? And maybe it doesn't look like this, so you just kind of have to go over here and pick Game Camp Small so you could have the layout look like this. Maybe when you opened it up, it may look like this. All right, and that's fine. But we all, on our computers, we should have this Game Camp Small layout that looks like this. And if it doesn't look like this and you don't have Game Camp Small, say yours did look like this, then I could actually change this screen to look like that. Here at the top, there's these little window tabs. So I'm going to drag project until you see it kind of locks in over here. And I'm going to drag console until it locks in over here. And now I kind of have this big screen in the middle and the project and the console on the side. I'm going to take the project window here and then these little 3 dots, I'm going to click on it and say one column layout. And now I can see my scene files over here. And then over here we see that I have some basic objects. Now that I fix my layout, I could save it. I could say save layout. And in here I'll type Game Camp Small. Okay. And that way we could all have the layout saved and pick it from the list, Game Camp Small. All right, so we have our Unity open, and then we learned about that this window here, this is what's going to be in our game. And the way we add stuff to the game is we come over here to the hierarchy window, and we could right-click on sample scene, this top level. You could right-click and say game object, create a 3D object, and here we have some objects we could add. So I could add a plane, and everybody was like, where's the plane? Well, this is a geometry plane. It's like a flat surface, which is a plane in geometry. All right, so it's just flat. See? And I could move my camera around. So when I'm looking at this scene, it's in 3D. So I could move I could zoom in and out with the mouse wheel. See, if I just scroll my mouse wheel, I could zoom in and out, get closer and farther away. And I could hold down the Alt key on the keyboard. It says ALT. So I hold that key down with my finger, and then I use the mouse. I'm holding down the Alt key, and I press the left mouse button. And then when I move the mouse around, holding those two things, I could scroll around the scene like this, okay? And then sometimes I could also press the mouse wheel. The mouse wheel is a button. So the mouse wheel, if you press it down with your finger, you see the icon turns to a hand, and I could move around like this to look up and down and just move over a little bit if I had to. So I added one object, a plane. Let me add some more. So this is what we were doing. We're practicing adding a bunch of objects to our scene. I could add a cube, and it looks like the cube is down low, so let me just pick it up with this arrow. So I could move things around when I put them in the scene by these little pictures that are drawn. So when I have the arrow pictures, I could move my object around, okay? And I could either click on the arrow to just move on that axis. So this red is the x-axis. This blue is the z-axis. And x and z are like moving around on the floor. So I could use the box in the middle and just move around on the floor. And then if I want to go up and down, I could use the y-axis to go higher or closer to the floor. And some people were playing around and their object went, see how it's starting to go in the floor, and then boop, it goes behind the floor. So if I kind of select the plane, I don't even see the cube. I'm like, where's my cube? So what I do is to find objects that I think they're gone, I just look here in the hierarchy window, and I could double click and Unity puts that object in view. So I could double click on this cube with my left mouse button, and I could see the cube outline right there. If I look underneath, there it is. It's just that it's underneath the floor. So I'm just going to bring it back up so I could see it, okay? And let me add some more objects. Let's try adding, what else do we have here? A sphere. So a sphere, it's coming out under the floor again too. Let's move the floor down like that. And then let's move it over. There we go. Select my sphere, and it gets highlighted with the orange. And then I could move it over here. Okay, let's add something else. Game object add. Let's see what a capsule looks like. Oh, capsule kind of looks like a pill. Okay, and I just put it over there. And let's see what other objects I have that are basic objects. Cylinder, what's that look like? Ah, it looks like a can, like a trash can or a soda can or something. Okay, so we could place the objects in the scene with this move icon thing. And to show the move icon, we just click this button up here. It says Move Tool. There are some other buttons here, these other two buttons. This next button is called the Rotate tool. And now when I press that toolbar button, this changes to circles instead of arrows. And I could rotate my object on any of those circles, so I could turn it around if I wanted to. Okay, let's see. Now let me pick the square. I'm going to pick this cube. I could click on the cube right here in the scene with my mouse because I could see it. I could click on it and then it's selected. Or I could pick a shape by picking its name from the window over here, sphere and capsule. So there's two ways I could pick objects. I could click on them in the scene, or I could click on their names. So let's take the sphere and let's make it bigger. So for that, let's see, this was the move tool, this is the rotate tool, and here's the scale tool. So when I press the scale tool, I have these little squares. And If I pick one square, I could stretch it just on that axis. See, make it look like an egg. Or if I pick the square in the middle, the whole thing could get bigger and smaller. Okay. Now, if I kind of warp this thing out of shape and it's like, oh no, I really messed up. I want to put it back to the way it was in the beginning. Make sure I have the object selected. You see it's highlighted. And I'm going to reset. I'm going to reset back to the way I was. So I come over here in the inspector window. When I have the sphere selected, it's going to, oops, let me click on the icon. When I have the sphere selected, then over here in the inspector window, it's going to show all the information about it. And here is the transform box. This is the transform component thing. And over here, I could say reset. I could reset the whole object, or I could just reset the scale. I was playing around with scale and I warped it. I want it to be back to the way it was in the beginning. So I can say reset scale, and boom, it goes back to its circle shape that it was in the beginning. Okay, so these three objects are the first ones I just want you to know about. The move tool, that you could move your object around in space in the scene and place it where you want. The rotate tool, which you could see it on something. If you rotate a circle, you're not really going to see anything because the circle's the same on all sides. Then there's the scale tool, which let me use it on the sphere again, and I can make it bigger or smaller. So if I pick the shape in the middle, the whole sphere gets big. If I pick any of these arrows, then it kind of only gets big on that axis. So there's it's 3D because there's three ways I could change the shape, three directions. Okay. So this is what we learned, and then how to place objects in the scene and move them around. So everybody probably made something and they put some objects in their scene. Let me make my floor a little bit bigger. So here is the floor, and here I'm just going to make it get bigger so we don't fall off the floor, and I'm going to do that. The second thing we were playing around with, let me save my work. So I'm just going to go File, Save. Good. See, now there's no star there. So now my work is saved. So the second thing we learned is how to change the color of some of these objects because everything's white. How about if I want some of them to be different colors? So to change the color, we need to first make a material. So we're going to go in the project window, and over here we select assets and then right click for a pop-up menu. And then I'll say to create a material. I press this button right here. And now I could give a name to it. So I'm going to call this red because that's the material. I'm going to make it red. So I have red selected, my material. And then in the inspector window, it tells me everything about the material. But right here, there's a box with a little eyedropper icon where it says main maps albedo. And I could click on this white box. And hey, look at this. It brings up a color tool. So in the square, I could pick the color by just clicking, and you see how the color changes. So I can see what color, if I want it to be a nice deep red. And then over here in the circle around the box, I could change the actual color. So let's say blue. Okay, so this is set to blue. My material is blue. That's how it's going to look. It's a little preview. Now I could take this material, I click on it, left mouse click, don't let go, and drag. And whichever object I want to turn blue, I just put the mouse over that object. I want the floor to turn blue, I'll just let go now. I'll let go of the drag, and boop, there. I made the plane blue. The plane is blue. Let's make another color. So I'll do it again. Right click, create, material. Okay, now let me give it a name. I called it red, but it's blue. And I'll just call this bug. It doesn't matter, it's bug haha, okay? And bug haha, I'm going to give it a color. Let's say yellow. I like this yellow. That's how it looks, that bright. No, brighter. There, nice bright yellow. Okay, now the material is a nice bright yellow bug haha. And I'll make this yellow, like it's the sun. Let me pick the sphere and I'll just pick it up higher in the air. Okay. Now, you're wondering, we've been placing all these objects in our scene. How do I play the game that I'm making? So far, there's nothing that moves in my scene. If I press play, it just switches from the scene window to the game window. And how come I'm seeing things from this point of view? Well, that depends on the camera. Also, when I press play to play my game, my screen changed color. It changed to red, so I know I'm in play mode. Anyway, I can't do anything. I'm pressing the keys, nothing's happening yet. So I'm going to press stop, and now it goes back to the scene window. So the scene window is here. This is when I'm working, and you see how I could move things around. I hold down the Alt key and the mouse button, and I could like turn around in my scene. Let's say I want to see it from this point of view. Now there's a camera here. Right here, there's a camera. I select the camera, and I could align the camera to the view. See, because this is the way it looks in my scene. This is the way it looks when I play the game. But I want the game to look like this over here. So I select the camera, and I say, oops, let me pick the icon. Okay, now it's a nice blue line. So I select the camera, and then I say game object, align with view. Boom. And now the camera, see, it's looking the same way that my scene is. Now if I press play, it's the same view. It's not a different view. It's the same view as my scene. So I could see what the camera is going to see by pressing camera, or I could see what the camera is going to see by pressing this tab up here and looking at the game view. Okay, but I'm going to work in the scene view where I can move objects around. So talking about moving objects, let's put an object in the game that I could actually move around. So there's two ways I could do this. One way is I just put an object in the game. I'll take the sphere and I could make it move all by itself by adding physics to it. Physics means that it's going to act like an object that has weight, and it's going to have gravity and drop to the floor. So I select the sphere, and then over here in the inspector window, I'm going to scroll to the bottom, and there's add component button. So I click it. And I'm going to add physics. So which one of these says physics? They're in alphabetical order. Well, that says physics, but it says physics 2D. I said to look for physics, and here it is, physics. So I'm going to click that. And I'm looking for something that says rigid body right here, rigid body. So I'm going to click on rigid body, and that's going to add a rigid body component to my sphere. So the rigid body has mass and stuff like this here. Now that I added the rigid body, if I press play, something's going to move in my game. The ball is going to move, boop, and it drops down to the floor. Okay? And as a matter of fact, this ball has physics, so when it hit the floor, it stopped. That means also that if I just put the ball over, how do I know if it's over this cylinder? I guess I had to put it like next to it first. Okay, that's definitely in the cylinder's line, see? But then I just pick it up above the cylinder, and I'm just going to make it a little bit smaller again. Okay, so this ball is now going to hit something when it comes down. Now, I positioned everything. Let me press play. I'm going to press play, and the ball is going to drop down, and it hits the cylinder, and it rolls off the world. Okay, so I could add a rigid body to something, and then it will drop with gravity. So let's see if I add it to this cylinder. Let's do it again. First, I pick the cylinder either by clicking in the hierarchy window, or I could pick the cylinder by clicking in it in the scene. And I know the cylinder is selected because it has the orange highlight. And I say add component in the inspector window, press this button. I look for physics, click, and rigid body, click. There. Now the cylinder has a rigid body, so it should also have physics and gravity. So let's press the play button, and now both of these objects, they should move and drop to the floor. Boonk, boonk. All right, look at that. So we got two objects that have gravity and they could move. So that's great. They're moving all by themselves when I press play. I just did a save. Every time you're working, do a little save here and there so you don't lose your work. Now we're going to add an object that I could move around by pressing the keys on my keyboard, and I could control where it goes. It's going to be my player object that I could move. So I'm going to right click. Let me add one more 3D object. I'm going to make it a cube, okay? And let's move it into position here so I could see it easily. Let me move it up there. There we go. I have a cube, and this cube, I'm going to give it a color so I know it's my player. So I'm going to create a material again. All right, and this one I'm going to call the player, and I'm going to color it a dark color. So let's go over here, and I'll pick like a dark red or a dark green maybe. Yeah, like a dark green color, almost black. Okay, so there's my material for my player. I'm going to drag it and drop it on my player. So this is the guy I'm going to control. So now to control this, well, before I control it, you see I have a lot of objects here, and I could see my player object in the scene because I colored it green. But when I'm looking over here in the hierarchy window, I kind of can't tell which one's my player by the words easily. I could change the name. So I select cube 1, and I could change the name right here by typing player, okay, and I press enter. And now here the name changed. Oh wait, I spelled it wrong. So I could name it over here again, or I could just name it here too as another place. So if I click on the word, one click, and I just wait, then it highlights like this and I could type in here, player. So there, this is my player object, and I have to add something to it to make it move. I have to add something called a script. So that's where you get to be a programmer and you have to write code. So I'm going to actually go down here to the assets window, and remember when I created the material, I'm going to create now a C# script right here and press the button. And now it's asking me for a name. Every time I add an object, it's always going to ask me what do I want to be the name. So since this script is going to move my player around, I'm going to call it move control 1. It's the controls to move my player. So here's a script. The file is made, and when it's selected, I get a little preview of what the script looks like, so I can tell that's the one that I want to open up. Now to open up the script, I could double click on it. I could press this open button, and either of those two ways, double clicking or pressing the open button, and then it's going to open up in Microsoft Visual Studio. This is the thing I'm going to use to actually write my code. So when I'm placing objects for my game, I'm in Unity, this thing, okay? I'm in Unity, this thing over here, when I'm placing objects for my game. When I'm going to write code for an object in my game, I'll be in Visual Studio. But look, I clicked on it and it didn't actually show me the script. It just opened Visual Studio. Let's leave Visual Studio open. I'm going to go back to Unity, and I'm just going to double click on the move control again. Ah, there you go. Now it's showing me the script. So by default, there's a script here, but it doesn't do anything. But I'll explain what we see here. These commands at the top, they're adding a bunch of code that we don't have to see, but they're called using statements. So I'm going to be using code from a thing called Unity Engine, and that's what this is up here, the Unity Engine. All right. And when we write a script, the code is organized into groups of objects, right? So you see how there's a bracket here, this little squiggly bracket. This one's an open bracket. Let me make it really big so you can see how it curls open. And then the lines, there's a line here that Visual Studio shows that goes all the way down to here, and there's a closed bracket. So this is a public class move control 1, and everything inside these brackets is the code of move control 1. So what kind of code is in here? What kind of lines are in here? First, there's these green lines, and they're just called comments. So after I type a dash dash like this, anything after it turns green, which means I could type anything at all I want to, and it's not going to bother the computer. It's not going to try to read it. Okay? It's just a comment in green for me to read, to tell me what's going to happen in this function. Like the way over here it says update is called once per frame, and this one said start is called before the first frame, update, blah, 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 blah. So they typed all that gibberish. But I'm going to erase this. Matter of fact, I'm going to erase the whole inside over here, and I'm going to start typing my own code. Okay? So I'm going to type it, and I'm going to type really fast because I've been typing for many years computer code. But so inside my public class, first I'm going to make a variable, public float move speed, I'm going to call it. And that's going to equal a number, 3.5, I'll say, f. F means float. See how this is a float and f is a float, 3.5. So I have a variable, and then I'm going to have a function, public, no, not public, private void, I got to spell right, update. Okay. Now, did you notice as I was typing, you see these little boxes that come up? They could help me do stuff. Let me type this line again. Watch what happens. As I'm typing letters, Visual Studio is putting things that it thinks I want to type. So I could either keep on typing, or I could click on the word private. That's what I was looking for. Then I do a space, and I start typing again, void. And look at that. The list shows me words it thinks I want to type. And yeah, that's what I want, void. Now I want to type the name of a function. This function name is called update, UPD. Anybody see the word yet? That's right, I see the word too. So I could just do that. Oh my goodness, look at all this code it just put in here for me. It put in the parentheses, and it put in the brackets for the function already. Okay, good. Now I'm just going to put my mouse here by clicking with I'm going to click with my mouse, and there's a little blinking cursor, and I'm going to put the code inside the update function. So I want to have a variable called float x equals input.get axis, and the axis I want to get is the horizontal axis. So this is going to see if I'm pressing something to go left and right on my computer, and it's going to put the value in the x. Now that I have a value of what you press to go left or right, x is going to equal a number from -1 to 1. How could I use that number to move my game object over here? Let's put this scene in the right point of view. So if z is forward and x is left and right. Right now z is facing me, so I may get confused about which way is left and right. So I'm going to use the Alt key and the mouse button and turn this around. So yeah, z is facing in front of me. And I'm going to pull my player, I'm just going to pull him back over here to move him. And I'll move some of these other guys back too. All right, so z is forward. So if I'm standing in a room, z is saying which ways to go forward. Ooh, let's pick this up so it could drop. All right. I'm going to put it like that. Like that. Move it over. Good. Now I'm going to set my camera to look at that view. So I pick the camera and I say align with view. Boom. All right. So this is my player, and this is forward and backward, and that's on the z-axis, and this is left and right, and that's on the x-axis. I could tell it's the x-axis because this is a red arrow, and here red is x, and this is a blue arrow, and blue is the z. So now over here, I'll take the x that's going to move me left and right. I put the value in here, and I'll say this is the thing I put the script on. So this is equaling the cube right now. This dot transform. Transform is the component of my cube, which is this one right here, the transform. And if you look at this box up here for the transform, look at the position, okay? When I move on the X number changes, okay? I'm going to do that from code, what I'm doing here in the scene. When I move on the Z number changes. So I'm going to do what I just did here in the scene with my hand manually. I'm going to do it in the code automatically. So I say this .transform .translate, and you can see the commands right here, so I could click on it, translate. Then I put a parenthesis, and I could see that the function translate, I have to give it some more information. I have to give it a vector3, so I'm going to type vector3 dot, which axis is it on the X that it moves back and forth on? It's going to be the X-axis. It's going to move left and right, so I'll say right, vector3 right. So I'm going to move on this line of the vector3 right, and how much am I going to move? I'm going to move by X, so times X. And if I'm moving by X, that only goes from -1 to 1, but I want to go faster. So I'll multiply it again by move speed. Dun, 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 dun. And then just to make everybody's computer go the same speed, I say time dot delta time. Okay, and something's wrong, guys. I have a squiggly red underline. I typed something wrong. So this squiggly red underline is telling the computer, Microsoft Visual Studio, it's telling me I don't know what this is. So let me put my mouse on it. And I could read what it says. When I put my mouse on it, it says time does not contain a definition for delta time. Oh, I think I spelled it wrong. Let's see. It says show potential fixes. Let me click that. And I'm not going to use that. Let's type this over again. Something's wrong there. Let me press the dot. And I said I was supposed to type time dot delta time. So let me start typing D, E. There it is, delta time. So I could pick that. And the squiggly line goes away. If there's no red squiggly lines, I typed everything so that the computer could understand it. So first I put in this X that I read, and then I move on this axis by the value of X. I just typed in this code. Let me press save. So I'll press the save button. I could use these little icons here. I'll press the save all files or just save the one file. So I'll press this one. And then the little star went away. Then I'm going to go back to Unity. So I'll click and put Unity in the front. And I'm going to take the script and I'm going to add it to the player. Remember when I added the material, I just drag and dropped it? I could do the same thing with a script. I can drag and drop the script on what I want to put it on. Boom. And now here it says move control 1. So this object has a script on it. Let me press play. Let's see what happens because I have it reading the horizontal control. So horizontal control is I could use the arrow keys on my keyboard, the left and the right arrow. So it's moving. When I press the left and the right arrow, that's step 1. Now I want to move forward and back, but I didn't add the code yet. So let me press stop. And then I'm going to go back to the script. So I'm going to go back to my Visual Studio. And I'm going to add another 2 lines here in the update function for moving forward and backwards. So forward and backwards on the z-axis. Okay, so I'm going to go here, float z equals input.getAxis vertical. Okay, and then I'm going to take that value that's reading from the keyboard for vertical, which would be like the arrows up and down, and I'm going to set it this dot transform dot translate vector3 dot forward, okay, to move forward and backward, times z times the move speed, so I can move faster than 1, times time delta time. We're always going to add time delta time. And the thing time delta time does is it makes the game play at the same speed on whatever computer you play it on. Even if you have a really fast computer, the game will play at the same speed because you use time delta time. All right, so now I have a command to move left and right. So I could put a comment there that this moves me left and right. Okay, and I could actually say moves me left and right. And then over here, this one moves me forward and backward. Okay, that way I can remember what these lines do. And then we press save. You see how there's a little star there? I have to press save. And then I come back to the game. I could either do it from down here or I could click on the window. And now I press play and I'm going to try it out. Now I have two ways that I can move. I can move left and right and forward and backward. And let's see, if I move and I hit that cylinder, what's going to happen? I could push it. Oops, I pushed it one way, but I can't seem to push it the other way. Oh, now I can't push it anymore. That's interesting. I think I can make a little game out of this where I can move around and push these objects. The only thing is all the other objects in my scene, they're going to have rigid bodies on them. So let me just change the angle a little bit so I can see from the top. And let me take out some of these that I don't want. I don't want this one. So I'm going to put the ball in. All right, and let me move it down. I can tell by the shadow how close it's getting to the floor. All right, so I got a ball. Now I want to make a couple of these balls. So instead of starting over from scratch, I could select the ball, and right here I could right click and say duplicate. Boom, and now I got two of those balls. I'm going to put one here and one there. Let me duplicate it again. Boop. It's like making a copy, and I'll put one there. Now for the cubes, let me add a rigid body. So I select the cube and add component. I'm going to turn this into a little game, okay? And I pick rigid body, so now it has gravity. And I'll put one over here. Then I'm going to say cube, right click, duplicate, and move the copy over here. Maybe this one will be up in the air a little bit. And let's do another comp duplicate. And I'll put this one over here in the corner. And I'll also I'll rotate this one a little bit just to make some variation with these cubes. Let me do some of them and turn them a little. Okay. And my object move. So in this game, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to play around and knock all these guys off the screen. I want to make sure that my camera is looking the same way as the scene is, right? So if I put the scene like this, I feel like I better move this over the world better so it doesn't fall off. I select the camera and I go to game object, align with view. I could also press Control Shift F. So here I could select align with view and it aligns. Or the other thing I could do, let me just change this around a little bit more, is I could select the camera and just on my keyboard hold down the Control, the Shift, and the F key, and it does the same thing. It's a shortcut key. All right, so now I got some objects. I got my game player that can move around. I'm going to press play. And here at the end of the first weekend, I could do something. Wait a minute. Why did it move right through that? Hey, well, come back here. Oh, get back on there. All right, here we go. Try to. Oh, why isn't it hitting the other objects, guys? Why? They have rigid bodies. Maybe my player also has to have a rigid body. I was getting confused. I want Z to be in front so I could do the controls easier. Z is in front. Control Shift F. My player, let me pick him. Does he have a rigid body? So he has physics? Nope. Let's add him with a rigid body. So now everybody's going to have a rigid body. Now I'm going to press play. So the objects drop, and I should be able to, I could push things. Push. And I push you off. And let me push these balls out. I'm pushing. Come on. Let's go. And you off. Get off. You off. You go. Oh, those balls are going off by themselves. Come on, ball. Goodbye. And the last one over here. So I'm using the keys. It's kind of hard to control. Okay, goodbye, you. Woo! Oh no! And I fell off too. So at the end of the first weekend, I mean, it's not the greatest game in the world, but you could see we have an object that we can move around, and we could like move the other objects. So this is the end of day 1 and 2 of the game camp this summer. These are the notes, and you can look at this video and ask me questions if you have any in the YouTube comments, or you could ask me when you see me on Friday. All right, bye guys.